Folks, today I'm going to be talking about an absolutely meta-defining, or basically the meta for champion builds as it goes today inside Raid Shadow Legends at the time of recording, which is the 3rd of June, 2025. So let's go ahead and talk about it. This is going to be related mainly to PvP, so arena, live arena, those sorts of things, but you're also certainly going to get use out of this inside PvE in certain areas, especially as content gets harder. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the history of champion builds. So way back in the day, we strictly went for speed. Then we had stuff like Stone Skin and just tankier champions that came out where you would just really build everybody inside Stone Skin because there was no way to counter it. Then to counter the Stone Skin, we got Polymorph. And then to counter the Polymorph and the Stone Skin, we somehow ended up with getting like Burn champions and Bomb champions and poisons and people that ignore block debuffs and people that ignore resistance, like all your mythical champions. So we're now at a state where essentially the meta comes to building your champions in Stone Skin, but also having a champion that can counter Stone Skin by placing debuffs on the Stone Skin to rip off that Stone Skin so that your champions in Stone Skins can still go faster than the enemy who was also in Stone Skin. It is an absolutely insane meta where we're at, ladies and gentlemen, but we're going to be talking about one of the strongest ways to counter that. So let's go ahead and take a look at Classic Arena just as an example, right? So I don't think I can find any of the teams right now. I'm going to refresh a couple of times to try. But one of the most annoying champions, this will be a perfect example actually, one of the most annoying champions to face, and probably two of the most annoying champions to face for any players right now, is going to be Commodus as well as Gizmak, because Commodus has an AoE bomb which then automatically detonates, right? So instantly detonates all bomb debuffs on enemies with Stone Skin buffs or enemies whose HP is lower than this champion's HP, which is extremely problematic, right? Because it essentially ensures that you have no way to counter that. Gizmak is very similar, where he's going to start the battle by placing a burn on your team, which cannot be resisted. Simple as that, right? So he's going to get an AoE burn that then amplifies his damage and all those sorts of good things. Very enjoyable stuff to deal with. Now, against a team like this, I'm essentially sitting here and just giggling and swinging my feet and curling my toes because I have Marichka on my team, right? So you might be thinking to yourself, oh, is this going to involve Marichka? Come on, man. No, it's not. It's not going to involve Marichka. Marichka is great for countering teams like this. However, the problem you're going to run into in live arena, even when you have her, is simply just, oh, she's banned. She's gone. You know, nothing you can do against it. I don't have any, like, real battles or anything like that in my battle log currently. I've been getting defeated quite a bit, but if we take a look at, like, a lot of these battles, I'm picking my Marichka, but she ends up getting banned, right? Or somebody else picks her, and I actually lose because of that in a lot of cases, which is a shame, right? So you can't necessarily depend on just one champion to counter the meta, right? So what do? Well, then you start to go to what we did back in the day, where you'd have a champion like Pythion or a Duchess or somebody like that just built in very high resistance, who can then revive everybody else, place block debuffs on them, some sort of protection, right? Some sort of a cleanser with high resistance. The problem with that is kind of what I already discussed, where we're now in a meta where, for example, on Commodus's A2, where he places the bombs, he's just ignoring 20% of your resistance, straight up 20%. So if you somehow built your champion, so my maximum resistance on my account is like 850 or something like that, but if you somehow built your champion with 1000 resistance before anything else is considered, before masteries, gear sets, anything like that is considered, increase accuracy buffs, anything, right? Before anything else is considered, Commodus's A2 is already going to knock your champion down to 800 resistance, which is insane. Now, 800 resistance means that they're really only going to need 600 to 650 in terms of accuracy to land their skills. Then you throw an increased accuracy buff on them from like a Lady Mikage, and they only need like 300 accuracy to land their skills at that point. It's absolutely insane, right? So how in the hell do you counter this? And it's even worse with somebody like a Gizmak, who on his passive, right? So on his Form 1 passive, he places that burn. It cannot be resisted if his crit rate is 100% or higher, and it's just a placement. You can't even rely on affinity to counter this. Then you go into his second form, and he places a decreased defense that also cannot be resisted if they're under a burn. And on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, Stone Skin does not make you immune to HP burns, right? So even if you have Stone Skin, you're just going to get burnt out of it. And as a matter of fact, Stone Skin actually takes more damage. It makes your champions take more damage from HP burns. So all that being said, you can't build resist champions. You can't rely on Stone Skin to protect you anymore. How the hell are we playing in today's meta? Well, let's go ahead and talk about that, because I have Pythion built to be my cleanser / reviver that is my secondary pick when Marichka gets banned. And this is how he is built, ladies and gentlemen. So I have decent resistance on him at 573 with a speed of 267, 65k on the HP, 4300 on the defense. You probably want more HP and less defense, and you obviously want more accuracy. But how is he built? Well, that's a great question. So he's built inside 4 pieces of Feral, which is a gear set that everybody gets, a gear set that everybody gets decent pieces of by doing Siege, right? And he's built in 4 pieces of Stone Skin, as well as 1 piece of protection just for the resistance bonus. But what does this do? Well, first of all, we're getting the benefits of Stone Skin, where he has the 4-piece, right? So the Stone Skin buff with a 50% chance of blocking removals. That's already fantastic. Additionally, I do have him built out inside the Lightning Cage Mastery, which is going to give you an additional... it should say it in here somewhere, but it's going to be like an additional 50%. Or is there just no chance? I don't even know. Yeah, so Lightning Orb, yes, there it is. Lightning Orbs have a 50% chance to protect a random buff from being stolen, right? So he's going to have an extra 50% chance of protecting that Stone Skin. So he's going to have a 50% chance that it's protected. Then it's going to go into the Lightning Cage, which is going to be an additional 50%. Now, he can cleanse, right? So he can remove all debuffs, then heal everybody. Heals them additionally for each debuff removed, right? So that's perfect. He can also revive with decent HP, decent turn meter, and a strengthen, plus less damage taken for each buff on your allies. So that's already important, right? But we talked about how you can't rely on resistance to win the fight for you. So what do? Well, we build him with a 4-piece Feral set, right? So 4 pieces of Feral is going to place a block debuffs buff on us at the start of the round for 2 turns. And what does this do? Well, simply put, it takes the current meta and it says, fuck you. And it says, you can't place bombs on me, you can't place poisons on me. Only like Nell ignores that because she ignores block debuffs for some reason. I don't know what Plarium's planning, but you can't have bombs from Commodus, you can't have burns from Gizmak, you can't have all that stuff, right? It says, I'm going to get my turn because of Stone Skin as long as it's not removed, right? I'm going to take my turn, and I'm either going to cleanse everybody else or I'm going to revive everybody else. Now, with his speed, my Pythion is very much built for the I'm going to revive everybody else sort of crowd. He's not built for the I'm going to cleanse everybody else. If you're having him try to go to cleanse, you're going to want him to be essentially the fastest champion on your team, which if you're building a go second team probably isn't going to be that hard to do, but it's going to be a lot faster than 267, right? So just something to consider there. And Pythion is a perfect candidate for this because he can revive and he can heal, right? And you'll see builds like this, and I meant cleanse, by the way, not heal. You'll see builds like this on other champions as well. So, for example, Siegfried. You're going to see him built out inside Feral all of the time. And why is that? Well, he has the passive that stops himself from getting killed, right? So really, all you're worried about at that point is just blocking those debuffs that might be coming at you. You're going to see builds like this on, you know, at a very much lower level. You could see builds like this on somebody like a Skullcrown, because same thing, she's like a very budget Siegfried, where she has that unkillable on herself. So really, all you're worried about is just making sure that she doesn't get debuffed, right? Because, you know, if your champion is unkillable, that's cool. But if they're stunned, what does it do, right? If they're slept, what does it do? So obviously, Skullcrown, you can't have anywhere near as high as stats on her, even with a blessing. And then you also can't have, you know, legendary blessings on her, so you can't use Lightning Cage. So something to consider there. But you're going to see builds like this kind of across the board because it's so good at just making sure you don't get CC'd. And Feral is not only good for stuff like, you know, obviously like we just discussed, but Feral is also incredibly useful for putting on somebody like your Speed Booster, right? So if you have fast Feral gear, throw that on your Arbiter, And she now no longer has to worry about Hegemons, right? You're not going to get CC'd by a stun set, a provoke set, or their block active skills, because she's just going to block all of that BS, right? Absolutely fantastic. You can also obviously throw this on, I was going to say Leorius, but he's pretty much immune himself. But Leorius isn't immune to everything. So if we go ahead and take a look at Leorius, right? So Skinwalkers, go and take a look at him here. He is immune to stuns, freeze, sleep, provoke, fear, true fear, and petrification. But he's not immune to sheep, so you're not really going to benefit from having him inside block debuffs anyways. So he's maybe not the best example, but I think you guys get the idea of what I'm talking about. And I'll go ahead and I'll showcase this inside the arena to actually give you an even better idea, right? So we'll take out Marichka, we'll pretend Marichka got banned, and then we'll bring in our good old Pythion. And then just for sake of testing, we'll also bring in like a Harima with our increased resistance, as well as a Freya, right? So we'll do something like this, and this is a 500,000 player power or champion power team going against a 1-point-some million power team. So it's not exactly going to be the most fair of matchups either way, but you can see no debuffs are landing on the Pythion regardless of what is happening to the rest of the team, right? Which is absolutely perfect. So everybody else is just kind of getting clapped. You see Harima has block actives on her and all that sort of good stuff. Now, we may not get a turn here. We're probably still going to get decimated, but it is what it is. At least we have the block debuffs up on everybody now, so we don't need to worry about those bombs landing on us, which would have been very annoying. Now, Gizmak just goes anyways and claps us out. So, again, you know, twice the power on this particular team. This account is absolutely stacked. It wasn't that one, it was this one. Mad with a 53 million player power account, which you can't really see, but you know, absolutely insane stuff. For comparison, my account is around a 19 million player power account. So we're going to go ahead and throw in something like this. This is the team that I generally try to run inside something like Live Arena. And then, like I say, generally the Marichka gets banned, so we wouldn't necessarily have her. But you'll see, we still get the burns placed on us, right? Because there's nothing you can do about it, really. Like, Marichka, she has the ability to obviously place the block damage, which is extremely helpful, but she can't just stop the burns from being placed, and that's even through the stone skin. And then we do get the buffs removed from us there, unfortunately. We do sit down the Lazarius, which is nice. We get the bombs detonated here, which is annoying. The Taurus gets revived. I think we're probably still going to get clapped here, yeah, because Pythion lost his block debuffs. This is a terrible showcase, ladies and gentlemen. But that being said, I don't think many people are going to be able to beat this particular account, right? Like, there's 6-star awakenings pretty much across the board, +2 and +4 awaken the mythical champions. This stuff is absolutely insane. If you had some +6 awakenings on your champions and had some polymorph on them or something, it would certainly help a lot. But we're going to try to run this one more time just to see if we can't get an example here. But yeah, there it is. So the buffs are all getting removed. Pythion is still holding strong still. He does have the stone skin on him. We're going to go ahead and cleanse here with the Marichka straight into the extra turn. Heal up, shield up, all that sort of good stuff. We're going to go ahead and now place the block debuffs. Don't really care much about Siegfried. He's just hitting into the UDK anyways. Now we do get the bombs on us, but doesn't do anything. They can't be placed. Obviously, he's going to come in and try to do his big AoE blast, but he can't really do much because, you know, again, block debuffs. So you can really start to see just how good this team is at surviving. And again, we're running this against genuinely one of the strongest team compositions in the entire game. You could say that, you know, they're very, they don't have much support or something like that, but realistically, this is an absolutely obscene team. So, if I'm able to do this with 19 million player power, I think you guys can do this with however much player power you may have. So we're just going to go ahead and take out the Siegfried. Now, we really just have to worry about the Commodus, which, worst case scenario, he bombs all of us. We still have Marichka, who's bringing us back with the revive. Everybody else gets stunned there, which is a bit unfortunately, so we might get clapped here, but we do have the block debuffs now on the Taurus. I'm going to heal up with the Pythion. This will be very problematic if he places his bombs, which he does, so that's annoying. Taurus is still alive, though, because he had the block debuffs, so we're just going to go ahead and keep whacking in here. And hopefully, we can get our A2 off with Taurus. Hopefully he doesn't cycle around faster than us, which he very well might, and we have a bunch of poisons on the Taurus, which is a bit of BS, but There it is. Taurus sits down. Unfortunate, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, man. Literally just the Commodus left alive on this as well. That is so unfortunate. I kind of want to try it one more time, but I think you guys definitely get the idea what I'm talking about how this is meta changing, right? So just for comparison, let's go ahead and take the Pythion out, and let's say we brought in a support like a Freya who can cleanse and block and all that sort of stuff, right? And let's show you how that goes and how long we last on this particular team. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to be as long, unfortunately. So Commodus comes in. We now have Gizmak doing his thing, ripping off some of our buffs there as well. You can see the block damage is gone from the Marichka. Marichka has now sat down. We get slammed. We're getting stripped. Nothing good here, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, now we have the bombs placed on everybody, and everybody is clapped. As simple as that, right? So you can really see how much of a difference this build that I'm talking about actually makes. This particular guy is probably going to look at his defense log and just think, what the hell is going on? But, you know, it is what it is. So with these different teams that we use to try and fight it, obviously the Pythion and the Marichka is the strongest combination. That's the closest that we got to beating it. And if I were to bring in some of my mythical champions, like, say, for example, an Embrace, we probably would have been able to do something there, as well as maybe even a Carnage could have helped us out. Certainly a Crixia, you know, plenty of options to work with. But I really just wanted to showcase this. A lot of the top players are using builds exactly like this, especially on the specific champions that I mentioned. And I think it's important for you guys to understand how strong Feral Set is, because it is severely underrated in today's meta. I still just see so many champions built out in just, you know, Stone Skin, nothing else, which is perfectly fine as long as you're not facing good players, right? So that being said, thank you guys all so much for watching. There's a Discord link down below. Channel memberships are live. Go ahead and join that as well if you'd like. And as always, see you guys next time.